Senate Armed Services Committee. Senator, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Katie.
I want to get your reaction first to a lead from the Associated Press today. We're going to throw it up on the screen. I'm going to read it to you. President Donald Trump can't be counted on to give accurate information to Americans when violent acts are unfolding abroad. Do you agree? Do you disagree, Senator?
As to whether or not that should be shared with the public?
No, as to whether or not the public can count on the President of the United States to give accurate information.
I think that's true that he can, but the President of the United States has another function, and that is to be careful not to say anything that might disclose something that our intelligence is working on right now that might end up apprehending terrorists. So he has to be a little careful with that.
Do you agree with do you agree with him tweeting out an unverified Drudge Report headline in response to the attacks instead of, say, pausing and waiting and talking to his National Security Council?
Yeah, Katie, I didn't know about that, and so you're asking me something that I'm not sure of.
Are you, in general, supportive of just tweeting out unverified headlines?
Well, I think what this president has done is gone straight to the people because he was not getting fair treatment from the media. That's you guys. And so I can't blame him for doing that. I think he's doing the right thing.
I understand your argument there and the argument that you are making, respectfully, but the president can go directly to the public with information that he gets from his National Security Council and not necessarily from an unverified Drudge headline. That is still the media, after all.
Okay, well, I'll let him be the judge of what he wants to use his communications for, what he wants to accomplish.
Why do you believe that that Americans, though, should believe this president, given the track record? And I could, name a bunch of things that have happened recently. For instance, him saying that there was terror in the Philippines before the Philippines could figure out what it was. Now they're saying it was actually just a robbery gone bad. There are a number of different occasions where he's said information that hasn't quite turned out to be true.
Well, I think you can say that about anyone if you want to really micro look at these people and say...
But this is the President of the United States, Senator. It's not just anybody.
Katie, yeah, I'm fully aware of that. You would never have said this about any other, about a Democrat president. And I think it's just fair that you give the guy a chance. When you say he hasn't done a lot of the things, he's done almost everything he said he would do. I'm very excited about the fact that he actually did some 47 regulations that he actually felt strongly about, campaigned on, and won on. And so I just, give him a chance. He's doing a good job. To those of us who really want to believe that we were going down the wrong path before, and I'm one of those.
For the record, Senator, if a Democratic president tweeted something that was false, I would call him out or her out for that as well.
Okay, sounds good.
And then I want to get your opinion on something that Politico is reporting about Article 5. The president gave a speech to NATO allies last week in which he did not express support for Article 5. According to Politico, his National Security Council said that he was going to include that in his speech. It was in his speech. Then suddenly, when he was delivering it, it wasn't there. There's some suspicion out there among the government that was something that was deleted by the president himself. So does it concern you that the president is not expressing full-throated support for defending our NATO allies on the world stage?
Well, we are defending our allies. We're doing such a much better job now than they were doing before, during the Obama administration.
How so?
Well, the Obama administration, he says he had said at one time he was going to be drawing the line. If they crossed the line, he was going to get tough action. And then he backed away from that. He refused to allow us to send defensive equipment to the Ukraine when they had been our best ally. And for the first time in 96 years, they don't have one communist in their parliament. So he is standing up for a strong America in a way that we didn't get out of President Obama at all.
I want to get you on the record about climate change, not climate change. I know where you stand on climate change.
Paris,
about the Paris Agreement, exactly. How do you feel about the president withdrawing? After all, it was a non-binding accord. Do you think that it's a good idea to take the United States out of the running or off the table for future negotiations?
Well, first of all, let's keep in mind, I was criticized when I was on the Andrea Mitchell show last Thursday. You brought this guy, Michael Mann, in. Michael Mann was the same scientist that was discredited through ClimateGate, and that was something that was very, very significant at that time, to have him come in and say things that just flat weren't true. Now, as far as the Paris Treaty was concerned, it wasn't a treaty, of course, but the Paris Agreement, yes, I was glad that he did that, because if he didn't do it, there would always be people out there, radicals, some of the far left groups, that would sue the United States, that would sue the president, and I think it would be very disruptive. And I think everyone pretty much agreed that that was the major reason that he wanted to do it.
Let's talk about jobs, though, and they specifically pointed to this accord hurting jobs at home. They're relying on research that is not being upheld by the majority of a majority of people, at least. And there is a concern that China is going to be able to take over and fill that hole when it comes to new technology, clean energy technology. Are you concerned that Americans are not going to have the same access to good, clean energy jobs that will sustain themselves in the future by us not being a part of any sort of future negotiations on the world stage and allowing China to fill that gap?
The reason I'm not concerned is because it's not true. In 1992, we made the agreement. That was back at the very first that said we're going to have these annual parties that they have every December, and we will be a part of it from now on, regardless of what happens. So they didn't lose the place at the table, as some people said that they did. Now, as far as the American people are concerned, they understand. They understand what is going on. Why do you think it is, Katie?
The majority of the American people wanted to stay in this agreement. The majority of the American people believe in climate change. Senator.
Well, let me ask you this, Katie. If that's the case, why wasn't President Obama able to get anything through on climate change when he had the House, he had the Senate, he had the White House, and still the American people just overwhelmingly did not support him in that whole issue.
Can you promise your constituents that they're not going to lose access to better jobs in the future, that they're going to continue to have well-paying and long-lasting jobs in clean energy, even without us being in this agreement?
Absolutely. There's no question about it. It has nothing to do with that. We have abundant, clean energy in this country that we were refusing to use. We need to develop our own resources. That's what we have been doing in the past. Right now, President Obama had a war on fossil fuels, right? That's coal, oil, and gas. Between fossil fuels and nuclear, that was 89% of the energy it takes to run America. So you've got to be able to run America. There are a lot of things in renewables that may work in the future. Right now, the technology is not there. And I think that what this president did by refusing to be in that agreement was to provide jobs in America that we can depend on to not have to go to other countries. Now, if you look at the agreement that was made, our president said in Paris, he said, we're willing to reduce our CO2 emissions by 27% by 2025. Well, his own EPA said that's impossible. There's no way in the world that we can do it. Then China comes dancing in, and China says, no, we're going to continue to have our coal-fired power plants that we're cranking out now every 10 days until 2025. Then we'll consider reducing our CO2 emissions. Then there's India. India said, yeah, we'll join in as long as we get $2.5 trillion.
This is a non-binding agreement, so the president could have reduced his goals. He could have said, I don't agree with what President Obama targeted.
See, that's why
it's non-binding. You can set your own targets. That is part of the deal. You don't need to walk away from it. There's no renegotiation here.
It's up to each
country.
Katie, How can you say that with a straight face? You know
'Cause it's
all the groups
true.
out there that can sue the president, can sue the country, and say that this is this contradicts what they were trying to do in Paris. The president agreed to that. Yeah, it's non-binding. That doesn't stop a lawsuit. That doesn't stop other people in groups from keeping us from developing our own resources. I know that all the liberals want to believe that, but you know. Why do you think it is that that the previous president, Obama, was unable to get anything through the Congress when he owned the Congress? Because the American people don't agree with that.
Senator.
And that's what the polling is showing now.
Senator James Inhofe, thank you very much for your time, sir, and happy Monday to you.
Thank you, Katie.